Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fluent English Daily. In today's lesson, we are going to learn how to stop repeating the same words in IELTS speaking and writing. Repetition is not always grammatically wrong. In fact, sometimes repeating an important word makes your meaning clearer. However, if you use the same word again and again, your vocabulary may sound limited, and your ideas may feel less developed. For example, many candidates repeatedly use words such as good, bad, important, people, and problem. In this lesson, you will learn how to replace repetition naturally by using synonyms, referencing words, word families, collocations, and more specific vocabulary. The goal is not to use the most difficult words possible. The goal is to express the same idea clearly, accurately, and flexibly. Let's begin. Why can repetition affect your IELTS score? In the speaking test, repeating the same words too often may make your vocabulary sound limited. Your answers may also become mechanical. For example, I think technology is good because it is good for students, and it is also good for workers. The meaning is understandable, but the repeated word good does not show much lexical flexibility. In writing, repetition can weaken cohesion and make an argument feel less developed. If every sentence begins with the same noun or phrase, the paragraph may sound unnatural. At Band 7 and above, you need to demonstrate flexible vocabulary, accurate word choice, and natural paraphrasing. However, this does not mean that every word must be replaced. Some repetition is necessary for clarity, especially when discussing an important topic. The main goal is to avoid unnecessary repetition while keeping your meaning precise. Let's compare a weak answer with an improved version. The weak answer is, technology is important because it is important for education. It is also important for work, and it plays an important role in our lives. The sentence is understandable, but the word important appears 4 times. This makes the answer sound repetitive and underdeveloped. Now listen to the improved version. Technology plays a vital role in education because it gives students access to information. It is also essential in the workplace, where digital tools improve productivity. The basic meaning is similar, but the vocabulary is more varied. Instead of repeating important, the speaker uses plays a vital role, essential, and a more specific explanation about productivity. Notice that the improved answer does not simply replace every repeated word with a synonym. It also develops the idea by adding specific information. This is an important Band 7 strategy. Do not only change the vocabulary, improve the explanation as well. The first strategy is to use synonyms carefully. For example, instead of repeating important, you may use essential, significant, or crucial. Instead of repeating good, you might choose useful, effective, or beneficial. Instead of repeating bad, you could use harmful, problematic, or ineffective. However, these words are not always completely interchangeable. For example, crucial is stronger than important. If something is crucial, it is extremely important or necessary. The word beneficial means that something produces a positive result. It does not replace good in every situation. For example, we can say, regular exercise is beneficial for mental health. But we would not normally say, I watched a beneficial film last night, unless the film had a particular educational or positive effect. At Band 7 and above, accurate vocabulary is more valuable than unusual vocabulary. Never use a difficult synonym unless you understand its meaning and context. The second strategy is to use referencing words. Consider these sentences. Social media is popular. Social media helps people connect. Social media can also waste time. The phrase social media is repeated in every sentence. We can make the paragraph more natural by using a pronoun or reference phrase. For example, social media is popular. It helps people connect. However, using these platforms excessively can also waste time. The word it refers back to social media. The phrase these platforms gives us another way to refer to the same topic. In IELTS writing, useful referencing phrases include this trend, these platforms, such behavior, the issue, and the problem. For example, more employees are working remotely. This trend has changed the way many companies operate. Referencing words help connect sentences and reduce unnecessary repetition. However, always make sure that the reference is clear. The reader or listener should immediately understand what words such as this, it, or they refer to. The third strategy is to use word families. A word family contains different forms of the same basic word. For example, the noun is benefit, the adjective is beneficial, and the verb phrase is benefit from. We can say, the policy provides several benefits. The policy is beneficial for students. Or, students can benefit from the policy. The main idea remains similar, but the grammatical form changes. Another example is the word family connected with education. Education is a noun. Educational is an adjective. And educate is a verb. For example, education is important. Educational applications can help learners. Schools should educate students about online safety. Other useful word families include dependence, dependent, and depend on. Success, successful, and succeed. Learning word families helps you avoid repetition and build more flexible sentences. It is also useful for IELTS writing because it helps you change sentence structures more naturally. Now it is time to practice. Let's check the answers. Another useful strategy is to learn collocations. A collocation is a natural combination of words that commonly appear together. Instead of repeatedly saying good, you can use more specific combinations, such as a useful strategy, an effective solution, a positive impact, a rewarding experience, or a practical approach. Instead of repeating problem, you might say a major challenge, a serious issue, a growing concern, a negative consequence, or a source of pressure. You can also replace general nouns with more specific ones. Instead of saying people in every sentence, identify the exact group. Depending on the topic, you may say students, employees, residents, consumers, young adults, or local communities. Specific vocabulary makes your ideas clearer and usually sounds more natural than random synonyms. For example, instead of saying people in cities have this problem, you could say urban residents often face this challenge. In IELTS speaking, do not spend too much time searching for the perfect synonym. If you pause for too long, you may damage your fluency. Instead, use simple phrases to express the same idea in a different way. Useful phrases include, what I mean is, in other words, to put it simply. Another way to say that is, this is mainly because, and a good example would be, for example, public transport is important. What I mean is, it allows people to travel around a city without relying on private cars. The phrase, what I mean is, helps the speaker develop the idea without repeating exactly the same sentence. Another example is, living abroad can be challenging. In other words, people may need time to adapt to a different language and culture. These expressions give you time to think while still sounding natural. Remember that in speaking, clear communication is more important than using the most advanced synonym available. In IELTS writing, you should avoid unnecessary repetition, but you should not remove every repeated word. Some key terms need to be repeated so that the argument remains clear. For example, if your essay is about public transport, you do not need to find a new synonym for public transport in every sentence. You can combine limited repetition with referencing words and paraphrasing. Useful noun phrases include this issue, this trend, such a policy, these measures, and the main drawback. For example, many governments are investing in public transport. These measures may reduce congestion and air pollution. When paraphrasing, be careful not to change the original meaning. For example, young people cannot always be replaced by students because not all young people are students. Strong IELTS writing combines three things: necessary repetition for clarity, referencing for cohesion, and accurate paraphrasing for vocabulary range. Let's compare two IELTS speaking answers. The first version is, I like my city because my city is convenient. My city has many shops, and my city has many places to relax. The phrase, my city, is repeated 4 times. Now listen to the improved version. I like my city because it is convenient. There are plenty of shops nearby, and residents also have several places to relax, such as parks and cafes. The improved answer uses the pronoun it instead of repeating my city. It also replaces the general structure my city has with there are plenty of shops nearby. The word residents is more specific than people. Finally, the answer includes examples, parks and cafes. This makes the response more detailed and natural. A useful speaking formula is use a pronoun, add a specific noun, and support the idea with an example. Now let's compare two versions of a Writing Task 2 paragraph. The first version is, online learning is popular. Online learning is convenient because online learning allows students to study at home. Online learning is also cheaper. The phrase online learning is repeated in every sentence. The improved version is, online learning has become increasingly popular because it allows students to study from home. This approach is also more affordable than traditional classes in many cases. The pronoun it refers back to online learning. The phrase this approach provides another clear reference. The phrase more affordable is more precise than simply saying cheaper, especially in formal writing. The sentence also compares online learning with traditional classes, which develops the idea more clearly. Notice that the main topic is still easy to identify. The paragraph avoids excessive repetition without becoming confusing. Let's finish with a short practice task. Choose one IELTS speaking answer or writing paragraph that you have written recently. Underline the words that appear too many times. Then, try to improve the answer using synonyms, pronouns, reference words such as this and these, word families, collocations, and more specific nouns. However, remember the most important rules. Do not replace every repeated word. Some repetition is necessary for clarity. Never use a synonym that you do not fully understand.
Do not choose difficult vocabulary only because it sounds advanced. And always make sure that your paraphrase keeps the original meaning. The goal is not to avoid repetition completely. The goal is to show flexible vocabulary while remaining clear, accurate, and natural. Thank you for watching Fluent English Daily. Keep practicing and try to upgrade one repetitive answer today.